Hello and welcome to another in a series of SOS lessons. If you miss your regular lesson, don't worry, here it is. This is a complete lesson, it's a reading, and let's go straight into it without any chat or any preamble, any small talk. Not today. We're looking at the article. Here we go. And the article I chose, when it was released a few days ago, a lot of my students chose it. So I had to repeat this article a few times during the day. And it's kind of interesting. Let's have a look. Food science. What is the Maillard reaction? First of all, we're going to look at the vocabulary. Here we go. The first word is roasted, of food, cooked in an oven or over a fire. Roasted peanuts are my favourite snacks to eat while watching movies. Reaction, a chemical process in which substances affect each other and are changed into different substances. Rust forms as a reaction between iron and oxygen in the presence of moisture. Chemist, a scientist who has studied chemistry. Swedish chemist Alfred Nobel invented dynamite in 1867. Protein, a substance found in meat, eggs, etc. that is important for health. The study found that eating protein from a variety of sources may help prevent high blood pressure. Fried, of food cooked in oil. I usually have fried eggs and coffee for breakfast. Baked, of food cooked in an oven. Each morning the street is filled with the smell of freshly baked goods from the bakery. Let's move on to the article. What usually happens is I read a paragraph or a sentence and the student will repeat after me. So in this case, obviously you can pause the video and say out loud the paragraph or the sentence and compare with me. It's a great way to improve your pronunciation and fluency. Food science. What is the Maillard reaction? What do toast, steak and freshly roasted coffee beans have in common? They're all made delicious by the Maillard reaction, something you've probably used in your own cooking many times, even if you didn't know it. The Maillard reaction is not a single reaction, but a group of reactions that take place when certain foods are cooking. Also known as the browning reaction, it was first described by French chemist Louis-Camille Maillard in the early 20th century. The chemical reactions take place between amino acids, which make up proteins, and simple sugars, causing certain foods to become brown. To do this, they need heat, but not too much of it, or the food will get burned. The Maillard reaction happens between 140 and 165 degrees Celsius, according to Masterclass. So if you try to cook a steak in boiling water, for example, it won't become brown because water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. For the same reason, if the food you're trying to cook is very wet, the reaction will take a lot longer to happen, or it might not happen at all. The result of the reaction is not only a brown colour, but also delicious tastes and smells. However, the different amino acids and sugars present in different foods produce different tastes, which is why a fried fish doesn't smell like freshly baked bread, explains modernist cuisine, although the same reaction takes place. Okay, that's the article, and the The word in italics is modernist cuisine. You can see here modernist cuisine. The word in italics is because it's a title of a magazine. So they've written it in italics here, I guess. Let's move on to the questions here. So I'll simply ask the question and then I'll give the answer. Obviously you can pause if you want to think after I ask the questions. Just pause the video, have a think, give your answer, and then you can listen to the correct answer. Number 1, who first described the Maillard reaction? The answer, also known as the Browning reaction, it was first described by French chemist Louis-Camille Maillard in the early 20th century. Number 2, what chemicals react with each other during the Maillard reaction? The chemical reactions take place between amino acids, which make up proteins, and simple sugars, causing certain foods to become brown. Number 3, at what temperatures does the Maillard reaction happen? The Maillard reaction happens between 140 and 165 degrees Celsius, according to Masterclass. Okay, so let's move on to the discussion section. And what happens normally in a lesson is that some students decide to read the article and then skip the comprehension questions and go directly to discussion. And you have a choice. Some students read the article before the lesson, so we don't even have to read the article. We can just go straight into the discussion. It depends what the student would like to do. So anyway, let's look now at the discussion part. The first question, had you heard of the Maillard reaction before reading this article? Personally, I hadn't heard of the Maillard reaction. Obviously, I knew of, we would call it browning. Has your bacon turned brown yet? Has your bread turned brown in the oven? When you put something inside the oven to cook, eventually it goes brown, and if you leave it any longer it becomes burned. Obviously most people are aware of the process of something being cooked too long, but obviously the Maillard reaction is in order to achieve a better taste, perhaps a better appearance. When you think of bread, if bread is just totally white, it's not very appealing, but with a lovely brown crust to it, it's marvelous. And the same with things like bacon. If I am served bacon which hasn't been browned, hasn't participated in the Maillard reaction, it's not as tasty and it doesn't look very good. But the main thing is the taste. If the fat of the bacon is crispy, it's very edible. If it's white and slimy, it's really not appealing at all. What about you? Have you heard, or had you heard of the Maillard reaction prior to reading this article? Please let me know. You can write in the comments your experience. What cooking methods are used most often in your country's cuisine? In the UK, it's a criticism actually that we fry food too much, and it's an ongoing source of conversation in the UK that we have an unhealthy diet because we fry too much food. Especially, it could be said perhaps, lower income families have a tendency to fry a lot more food than people in higher income brackets. So it's a criticism, if you like, of the British diet, the generality of lower income people having a poor diet because they fry too much. Chips, for example. Chips are a staple in many people's diets. But I don't want to be critical of anyone or upset anyone. And obviously, it's up to the individual family what they want to eat. But in the UK, frying obviously is part of it. More traditionally, baking bread, baking cakes, baking puddings, baking pies. Baking is massive, and of course it still is today. Baking in the oven is a very traditional and important part. Is fried food a big part of your country's cooking? Wow, I think I've already answered that in the last question. But please tell me about your country. Again, I don't want to criticise, but some countries have a reputation for frying a lot of food. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of Chinese food. It's very popular in the UK, and there are a lot of restaurants in my city with doing buffets. But my main criticism, and actually the main reason I don't like it in general, or I prefer a different type of cooking, is that the Chinese restaurants seem to fry a lot of the food. If you take away all the dishes which are fried, there's not really very much left from the buffet. If you take away all the fried food, there's like nothing left. So if you're trying to cut down on your cholesterol and you want to eat healthily, then you kind of avoid that kind of dish or cooking or cuisine even. Okay, let's quickly move on before I insult any more nations. Do you ever do any baking? If so, what do you like to bake? Baking in the oven. Okay, for me, pizza. I cook, to be honest, I'm not a cook, and I'm probably like 99% of everybody else in the UK. I sometimes buy a pizza from the supermarket, frozen section, and I put it in the oven for 10 or 15 minutes and it's ready. You know, it's not a magical recipe. It's just really lazy and time saving. And also delicious. If you buy a good quality one, it's very delicious. I would love to know more about the art of baking things. My mother was a tremendous cook, and she was always knocking out cakes, buns, puddings. My favourite, she used to bake in the oven a wonderful dessert called lemon meringue pie, and it was so delicious. It had a layer of kind of runny jelly-like lemon flavoured sauce in the middle, and it was topped with a white egg whipped meringue. And I think it was not so easy to get the timing just right. As we were reading in a previous article, the Maillard effect, the browning effect on the meringue is very delicate, and even just a few seconds and it's ruined. It's ruined. So her lemon meringue pie was something I remember with a lot of love. And yes, she used to make desserts like another favourite of mine was black currant crumble. Black currants with a kind of we call it crumble, and it's a kind of pastry type topping, and it was delicious. And you know, in the UK, the desserts, we usually have them with cream. You can have real cream, or you can have it's like a vanilla sauce, which we call custard. And custard is a massive part of desserts in the UK. What about you? Do you ever bake anything? Please let me know. Okay, what are the best tasting meals you've had at home recently? The best tasting home. Well, bearing in mind that I'm the cook, the bar isn't so high here. The bar is probably quite low. Best tasting meals. Well, actually, we had some noodles a couple of days ago, and that was really nice. We don't do it very often, but the way I make noodles, it's not professional at all. I buy the noodles in a packet, and they just need to be fried, warmed for a couple of minutes. So there's no secret in that. And with the noodles, what I do, I buy in the supermarket, they have some chicken breast, and in the same packet as the chicken breast, they have a few kind of mixed vegetables like peppers and maybe onion and a couple of little things, vegetables, and they have some soy sauce. It's very simple. You cook the chicken, you add the vegetables, you cook everything together, you add the noodles, you put the noodles in, warm it all up, and it really, literally 10 minutes, you've got a great meal. And I love it. I love that. I don't have it so often, maybe a couple of times a month, but that's the best one for me that I can do. And what about you? What are the best tasting meals you've had at home recently? I don't know if you cook, or perhaps your mum or dad cook for you. But everyone has an individual experience. Well, that's it for me. Please let me know what you think about this lesson, what you think about cooking, and that's all for me. See you again soon. Bye-bye.